Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something huge, something that really affects, well, everyone. Rising greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, nitrous oxide.
Mm.
They're all climbing.
They really are, and the impact is undeniable.
Yeah, the data shows global temperatures are up like 0.85 degrees Celsius just between 1880 and 2012. And we're seeing it, right? More extreme weather, ecosystems under stress.
Livelihoods, too. It's a massive challenge, and we urgently need effective solutions, things that can actually scale up.
Absolutely. We need approaches grounded in nature, things that can make a real dent.
Exactly.
And that brings us to today's topic, something that maybe doesn't get the spotlight it deserves in the climate conversation. Agroforestry.
Agroforestry, right.
Basically, purposefully growing trees alongside crops or animals.
Or both.
And what's key here and why we're doing this deep dive is that while lots of smaller studies exist, we're digging into a big one. A synthesis?
A really comprehensive look, wasn't it? Pulled together data from, what, over 100 observations? Over 100 observations, 26 different data sets. It really tries to nail down the true potential of agroforestry for, mitigating these greenhouse gases and, importantly, how it compares to conventional farming.
So we're hoping you'll get a much clearer picture today, maybe uncover some surprising things about how this works.
Definitely. And to start, there's a really crucial distinction the study makes about how agroforestry is practiced. It's fundamental to understanding the climate impact.
Okay, two main types, right? This difference seems critical for the long-term view.
It absolutely is. So the first type, let's call it type 1, is tree-crop coexistence.
Coexistence, meaning the trees stick around.
Precisely. The trees are permanent or at least long-term fixtures on the land. Crops are grown around them or animals graze beneath them.
Can you give some examples? What does that look like?
Sure. Think of traditional home gardens, often very diverse systems, or intercropping, where crops are planted between rows of trees. Silvopasture, that's trees, pasture, and animals together. Riparian buffers, those strips of trees along rivers, those all fit.
Okay, so the trees are constantly present in type 1. What's the big advantage of that permanence for capturing carbon long-term?
Well, it means the carbon stored in the trees, the biomass carbon, can just keep building up as the trees grow, year after year.
Ah, so it's genuine long-term sequestration.
Yeah.
Pulling carbon out and keeping it out.
Exactly. It's locked away for the long haul, assuming the system is maintained.
Got it. That's type 1. What about type 2 then? How does that differ?
So type 2 is what the study calls tree crop rotation.
Rotation, okay. Sounds different already.
It is. Here, trees are grown for a period, but then they're harvested, sometimes even burned. After that, the land's used for crops for a while, and then eventually trees might be replanted.
Examples of that.
Things like improved fallow systems, where land rests under trees before cropping again, rotational woodlots, or traditional shifting cultivation, sometimes called slash and burn.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, type 2 systems might pull in carbon while the trees are growing.
They do, yes, in the short term.
But then harvesting or burning releases a lot of that carbon back again. So the long-term net effect is less impressive.
That's the crucial point. The carbon built up in the tree biomass during the growing phase, it's largely lost when the trees are cut or burned. So over the full cycle, these systems make very little, or maybe even no, net contribution to long-term biomass carbon storage.
Right, so for sustained climate benefit, type 1, the coexistence model, is really where the action is.
That's what the synthesis suggests, yes. That's where the durable carbon sequestration primarily happens.
Okay, that distinction is super important then. Let's focus on type 1, those coexistence systems. What did the study find? What's the big number for carbon sequestration?
The average finding for type 1, looking at sites around 14 years old on average, is pretty striking. It sequesters 7.2 tons of carbon per hectare per year.
7.2 tons. That sounds like quite a lot. And I see there's a plus or minus figure there.
Right, plus or minus 2.8 tons. That just reflects the natural variability. Different sites, different conditions, you get a range of results. But 7.2 is the average.
Okay, 7.2 tons per hectare per year. Where is that carbon actually going? Is it all in the trees?
Not all, but mostly. About 70% ends up in the biomass.
Biomass meaning?
The trees themselves. Roughly 53% is above ground, the trunk, branches, leaves you see, and about 17% is below ground in the roots.
And the other 30%?
That goes into the soil, which makes sense, right? Trees are, nearly half carbon by weight, so they store it directly, but they also enrich the soil carbon.
How do they do that?
Through a few ways. Increased production of fine roots, which die and decompose. Something called rhizodeposition.
Rhizodeposition.
Yeah, it's basically roots releasing organic compound sugars and stuff directly into the soil. feeds microbes. And then there's just the simple dropping of leaves and twigs, the litter fall. It all adds organic matter.
Now, you mentioned variability. Did the study find any particular types of Type 1 systems that were especially good at storing carbon? Any hotspots?
Yes, definitely. Two stood out. First, home gardens.
Home gardens, like backyard gardens.
Well, often more complex traditional systems, yeah. They were powerhouses for above-ground carbon storage, averaging 5.8 tons per hectare per year, plus or minus quite a bit, 4.1.
Why are they so good?
It seems to be density. People often pack a lot of different trees and shrubs into a small space to maximize yields, and these are often in tropical areas with good growing conditions.
Interesting. And the second hotspot?
Silvopasture. These systems really shone in soil carbon sequestration, averaging 7.4 tons per hectare per year just in the soil.
Wow, why so high in the soil for silvopasture?
It's likely the combination effect. You've got the trees adding carbon, like we discussed, but you also have permanent blast cover, which is great for building soil organic matter compared to, say, tilled cropland. The roots from both trees and grasses working together.
Okay, so these systems are pulling down significant carbon, but for how long? Does it just level off quickly? What's the long game here?
Good question. For the carbon in the trees, the above-ground biomass, the study found these high rates can keep going for quite a while, at least several decades.
Several decades.
Yeah, the data covered sites from 5 up to 25 years old, and even older ones seem to maintain high rates. So it's not just a short burst. For soil carbon, it's a bit different.
How so?
The initial rates right after establishing agroforestry can be really high, maybe up to 8 tons per hectare in the very first year, but that rate tends to slow down over time.
Okay, so it tapers off.
Gradually, yes. It seems to reach a new, higher equilibrium, a steady state, after about 25 years or so. Still more carbon than before, but the rate of addition slows.
That makes sense. But something you mentioned earlier seems counterintuitive. The study found no significant correlation between the total amount of carbon stored in the trees and the amount stored in the soil. Why wouldn't more trees automatically mean way more soil carbon?
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? It highlights just how complex soil carbon is. It's not just about how much biomass there is above ground.
So what else is going on?
It depends a lot on how that biomass interacts with the soil. Things like, what tree species are you using? Different trees have different wood density, different leaf chemistry, different root patterns.
Yes, the quality matters, not just quantity.
Exactly. Litter quality affects decomposition rates. Root turnover, how quickly fine roots die and regrow, plays a big role. And then you have the soil itself, its texture, like silt and clay content, how well it forms aggregates.
Aggregates, like clumps.
Yeah, those little clumps of soil particles held together by organic matter and microbial glues, they're really important for protecting carbon within the soil. So all these factors add layers of complexity. It's not a simple input-output relationship.
Okay, that clarifies things. So we've talked carbon, but agroforestry impacts more than just CO2, right? What about overall soil health and those other greenhouse gases, methane, nitrous oxide?
Definitely improves soil health. Compared to adjacent conventional farmland, the study found agroforestry soils were significantly better off.
How so?
Bulk density was lower by about 9.6% on average.
Lower bulk density? That
Oh.
means less compacted, more space in the soil.
Exactly. More pore space for air and water. It's a key indicator of good physical health. And chemically, they found higher soil organic carbon, up 23.5%, and higher total nitrogen, up 27.1% in the topsoil.
Those are pretty substantial improvements. What's driving that? Why is the soil getting healthier?
Several reasons working together. One, you've got woody perennials covering the ground more, assimilating more carbon, less bare soil compared to annual crops that are harvested completely.
Right, less exposed soil.
Two, you're generally removing less biomass overall than in intensive cropping, so less carbon and nitrogen are being exported off the land. Three, because it's often permanent vegetation, there's much less physical disturbance, less tillage.
Less plowing, which we know can harm soil structure and release carbon.
Precisely. And finally, the trees themselves act as a barrier. They reduce wind erosion, their roots help water infiltrate better, and the canopy and leaf litter protect the soil surface from heavy rain impact.
Okay, clear benefits for soil health. But then the other gases, methane, CH4, And nitrous oxide, N2O.
Hmm?
You said there was some nuance there.
Yes, this part was quite interesting. Agroforestry soils were generally found to be methane sinks. They actually take up a small amount of methane from the atmosphere, about 1.6 kilograms per hectare per year on average.
So they help remove methane. That's good.
It is. But they were sources of nitrous oxide, emitting around 7.7 kilograms per hectare per year. Now, the really surprising part
Go on.
was when they compared the net emissions of methane and nitrous oxide from agroforestry plots to adjacent agricultural plots. They found only minor differences and no clear overall direction, like it wasn't consistently higher or lower in agroforestry.
That is surprising. Given the soil health improvements, you might expect, say, better methane uptake consistently. Why no clear difference?
It's tricky. For methane, the better soil structure, more pore space in agroforestry could enhance uptake by methane-consuming bacteria. That's a plus.
But
For nitrous oxide, it gets complicated. Some agroforestry systems use nitrogen-fixing trees.
trees that pull nitrogen from the air.
Right. Which is great for fertility, but adding more available nitrogen to the system can potentially lead to higher N2O emissions through microbial processes, especially if conditions get waterlogged sometimes. Also, adding tree residues back to the soil can sometimes fuel N2O production.
So factors pulling in opposite directions.
Possibly. And you also have to compare it to the alternative. Conventional agriculture often uses significant amounts of nitrogen fertilizer, which is a major driver of N2O emissions there. So maybe the N2O from N fixation or residues in agroforestry is sometimes balanced out by avoiding N fertilizer. It's complex.
And probably varies a lot between systems.
Absolutely. And the study authors really emphasize the high uncertainty in these N2O estimates. We need more data, more measurements, especially for N2O fluxes under different agroforestry types and management practices.
Okay, so methane and N2O impacts are a bit murky, maybe small net changes compared to agriculture, lots of uncertainty. But the carbon sequestration, especially in type 1, is strong and clear.
Very clear.
So let's bring it all together. When you combine the powerful carbon sequestration with these relatively minor or offsetting changes in methane and nitrous oxide, what's the overall greenhouse gas mitigation potential? The big picture.
Okay, so calculating everything in terms of CO2 equivalents to compare the impact of different gases. The study estimates that these youngish agroforestry stands, average age 14 years, type 1 systems, they mitigate about 27.2 tons of CO2 equivalents per hectare per year.
27.2, and again, there's a range.
Yes, plus or minus 13.5 tons. Still shows variability, but the central estimate is really quite high.
How does that compare to what people thought before? Is that higher? Lower?
It's substantially higher than many previous widely cited estimates. For example, a big assessment back in 2000 estimated around 11.4 tons of CO2 per hectare per year.
So more than double that older estimate.
Roughly, yes. And the main reason for this higher value is the study's comprehensive approach. They were really careful to include both above-ground and below-ground biomass carbon and the changes in soil carbon. Earlier estimates often missed parts of that picture, particularly the below-ground and soil components.
That really changes the perspective, doesn't it? It makes agroforestry seem like a much more powerful tool than maybe we appreciated.
I think it does. It underscores the importance of looking at the whole system.
So if that's the potential per hectare, what does this mean globally? Can we scale this up?
Well, the study did a rough calculation based on an estimate that there are about 630 million hectares of unproductive or degraded agricultural land worldwide.
Okay.
If we could convert, say, 20% of that area to agroforestry,
This is 20%.
the potential mitigation could be huge, around 3.4 billion tons of CO2 equivalents per year, plus or minus 1.7 billion given the ranges.
Wow, 3.4 billion tons a year. Just put that in perspective for us.
That's massive. It's comparable to the entire annual emissions of major industrialized nations. It really highlights that agroforestry isn't just a niche thing. It could be a major global contributor to climate solutions, while also, supporting food production and livelihoods.
An immense potential, often overlooked. So, wrapping this deep dive up, what's the core message you think people should take away?
I think the main takeaway is that agroforestry, especially the kind where trees and crops or animals coexist long-term, is a seriously powerful tool against climate change. It's not just preventing emissions, it's actively drawing down significant amounts of carbon from the atmosphere.
And it comes with those extra benefits, right?
Yeah?
Better soil health, potentially more biodiversity.
Exactly. It offers multiple wins. Climate mitigation, adaptation, improved soils, sustainable food production. It ticks a lot of boxes.
So it leaves us with a final thought, something for you, our listener, to maybe mull over. If agroforestry holds this much promise, what's next?
Where do we need to learn more?
Right. The study itself points out knowledge gaps. One big one is the interplay between biodiversity and these greenhouse gas fluxes. We focused on carbon, but how does having a diverse mix of plants, not just one tree species, affect everything? Could that
Yeah.
help optimize not just carbon, but also maybe reduce N2O or boost methane uptake?
That's a fascinating question. Designing for diversity. And related to that, what are the truly optimum configurations, the best combinations of specific trees, crops, maybe animals, for each unique environment, for mountains, for drylands, for tropics, to really maximize all these benefits at the same time? Carbon, soil, biodiversity, yields.
Finding those sweet spots for every landscape. That
Yeah,
sounds like a major but really important challenge for the future of agroforestry research and practice.
absolutely. There's still so much potential to unlock.